All right, class, our topic for today is the Great War, or World War I. It actually wasn't called World War I until after World War II started, then it was called World War I. But in the meantime, 1914, it was called the Great War. Our essential question, how did World War I change Europe and the world forever? All right, some of the causes of World War I. The alliance system. You had the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, it was actually Austria-Hungary, but when I say Austria, it just means Austria, and Italy, and then you had the Triple Entente, Russia, England, and France. The Russian-German Treaty of 1887, but there was a Russian-German Treaty in 1887, but when Wilhelm II came to power after his father was assassinated, he refused to renew it after dismissing Bismarck. He thought it was something that wasn't important and did away with it. Big mistake. France and Britain, the Entente Cordiale in 1904, they put aside all of their colonial disputes, especially in Africa, and they signed an agreement. In 1907, Russia joins England and France to check the powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. So Russia didn't have too much of a say in what was going on in the Triple Entente between France and England, but nevertheless they were still signed and part of that agreement. Now during this time you had the Anglo versus German arm race. German industry overtook the British in 1890, so they could make more things, make more guns, more ammunition, more weapons. The British naval policy, remember Britain is an island country, and so they felt that they always needed a strong navy. But their policy to have a navy larger than two of their closest rivals put together. So if their closest rivals were, let's say, Germany and Italy, the combined forces of those two navies, Britain wanted something even larger than that. Imperialism led to an increased tensions in Europe, so this imperialistic scramble for Africa and/or let's get trading going in the Far East. All of that created an increased tensions in Europe. Britain, France, Russia, and the United States saw Germany as an economic and military threat. So even back in the late 1800s, they started to see Germany as a threat. Now nationalism becomes a driving force in Europe. People are all fired up about their countries, and they consider nationalism as one of the most important topics. It was starting to be taught in school. People were fired up to be, very patriotic, and so nationalism was a very influential part of the climate in Europe at this time. Receding Ottoman Empire leaves a vacuum in the Balkan region, and this vacuum would later lead to World War I. All right, the Slavic people wanted independent countries in this area. First Balkan crisis in 1911. A young Turks led by Ataturk or Mustafa Kemal tries to modernize Turkey. Turkey and the Turkish Ottoman Empire. He wasn't able to do so. He would eventually become the father of Turkey, very similar to like the George Washington of the United States. But during this time, he was pushing forth a lot of ideas, and this created a lot of conflict in the Balkan region. In 1908, Austria annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina. Serbian nationalists not happy. This violated the Congress of Vienna. So the people in Austria-Hungary, power hungry, they wanted to take over as much land in the Balkans that had been vacated by the Ottoman Empire as they possibly could. So they took Bosnia-Herzegovina. Serbian people, they wanted their own countries. They were very nationalistic. They did not like Austria taking over Serbia. War averted because Russia was not ready to fight. Russia was still trying to grow their industry, and they couldn't back up Serbia. The First Balkan War in 1912, Serbia, Greece, Bulgaria drive the Turks out. Serbia wants access to the ocean, but Austria helped create Albania. So Serbia is a landlocked country. They wanted to be able to have access to the Mediterranean, but Austria on the side of Albania, and Albania then blocks Serbia from any kind of ocean access. Not good. Serbian people upset. The Second Balkan War in 1913, Bulgaria attacked Serbia and Greece over land in Macedonia. Serbia defeats Bulgaria and takes land in Albania. So the Serbians did have a pretty good army, and they were actually able to take over parts of Albania so they could have that open water access. But Austria reinforces Albania, which then declares its independence, and Austria was able to help Albania and then once again block Serbia for having any kind of access to the ocean. Russia is humiliated that it could not help Serbia. So, you know, they felt really bad since they were allies that they couldn't do anything to help them. Now, some immediate causes of World War I. In June of 1914, in particular June 28th, Archduke Franz Ferdinand from Austria is visiting Bosnia-Herzegovina, which they had just annexed a few years before, and is assassinated by a Serbian nationalist. So a Serbian nationalist came over to Bosnia-Herzegovina and killed the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was the heir to the throne. Not good. Kaiser Wilhelm II pledged total support to Austria-Hungary to punish Serbia. Austria-Hungary makes demands on Serbia, which they agree to most. The one that they did not is Austria-Hungary wanted to take their judicial system into Serbia and use it to punish the people who committed these crimes against Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Finally, Serbia said, no, enough's enough. 1 month later, exactly 1 month later, on July 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. On July 29th, Austria-Hungary begins bombing Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, and those were the first fighting of World War I. Russia and France mobilized troops to prepare for war against Germany. Remember, Austria-Hungary is fighting now against Serbia, but Germany is the most powerful country in Europe at this time and who's feared the most. On August 1st, Germany declares war on France. On August 3rd, Germany invaded Belgium on its way to France. So the French, fearing the Germans, had set up a line of defenses, but the Germans were wise not to try to go through those defenses, so they went a little farther north and into France. They went right through Belgium. There were hardly any defenses there at all, and into France. In response, France, Britain declares war on Germany, Russia close behind. It is at this point that then we have total war due to the alliance system. So you see total war, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and now the Ottoman Empire, named the Central Powers, versus the Triple Entente, France, England, Russia, and they were known as the Allies. All right, that's it.